Hey, Chris Manning here from Locked On Cavs, joined as always by my co-host, my co-pilot, Evan Damrell. On today's show, we're giving out more All-Star Break Cavs awards. That's going to start with the Most Improved Player Award, and then we're going to talk about Sixth Man of the Year, aka the Ricky Rubio Memorial Award, considering he probably deserved it before he tore his ACL. That's all coming up today on Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Before we get into today's show, I want to remind you that it is brought to you by BetOnline. Evan, let's do Most Improved Player Award. I've kind of
I
led
want
the
to hear your
conversation.
hipster take.
Well, no,
Hear your
here I think the three candidates: Darius Garland, Jared Allen, Jetty Osman. Those are the three candidates, and one of those is not like the other. So I'm cutting off Jetty Osman. I'm cutting Jetty Osman off. I'm not that much of a hipster. So
I was waiting to be like Dean Wade or something. I was like, yeah, let me hear it.
No, but my pick is I'm picking Jared Allen.
I think that's a great pick.
Okay, cool.
Go ahead. Give me your reasoning, and I'll give you my thoughts.
Garland, I'm going to, spoiler it, I'm giving, when we get to round MVP, I'm probably going to give Garland MVP because I think he just has been so instrumental to the team in ways that are just, unfathomable. And I feel like I needed an excuse to, talk about Jared Allen in these broader conversations because, we haven't decided if we're doing Defensive Player of the Year, but, there's a case Mobley deserves that, frankly. Allen has just been, I think, better than I think he's just improved in ways that I did not see coming. I think he's much more comfortable as a passer. Something Kobe Altman in one of his last non-team media appearances spoke about. He's like, we want Jared to get more comfortable doing dribble handoffs and passing. And he's done that. He's added a real post-up acumen to his game. He can hit baby hooks now. Has little up and unders. He has moves when he's posting guys up, which is massive for centers in the modern NBA when switches happen. He can now punish those to some success. And that's a massive step up from where he was. He remains really efficient on offense. He remains a really good rim protector. But he's improved in these two ways that have really unlocked him on offense and I think make his fit with Mobley more successful. I think the fact that he has shown some ability to pass, shown some ability to do DHOs, shown some ability to do some posting up and not just be a guy who dunks for you on offense and screens on offense has been really key to the Cavs, having it's an average offense, but it functions for the most part. And I think Allen kind of is a cog of that, and being a guy that has improved and done more given the opportunity to do so is a big deal. So there's a really good case for Darius Garland, obviously. I just look at Allen actually having added two things to his game that were not there. And the fact that I wanted to talk about him, and I'm giving it to Jared Allen.
I think it's a fair argument you make. Everything you said is absolutely correct. I know there's a lot of reservations when Allen signed that 5-year, $100 million contract with the Cavs. I was a fan of it, but a lot of people had reservations, and I think a lot of people were pointing out to the fact that he is comparable to what Sean Holmes was giving the Sacramento Kings last year, and that Holmes signed with the Kings for way less money, and I guess you got that, but you see Allen's leaps, like Chris pointed out, and it makes absolute sense why the Cavs committed so much money. And Chris asked Kobe Altman back when they first traded for him, and Altman shared with Chris, listen, we didn't trade Jared Allen not to keep him. It kind of helps to have him in house. And clearly, he's Chris Manning, good question asker.
I love asking questions to people. I love, even if it is not it is not just with me, but I fucking love asking questions to people that I don't know the answer to. God. My favorite genuine part about the job is getting to ask questions that I generally don't know the answer to, and I'm not just looking for some quote. I love just people giving me honest shit, and it doesn't happen enough. And now I'm fired up thinking about it.
It's icebreakers, man. They help.
Well, no. I'm not. Never mind. This is not a. I'm gonna just take a sip of coffee and calm down.
There you go. Just drink your coffee. This vibe. Maybe have some of the tea I got you for Christmas. But
I had some oat creamer in this coffee. It's delicious.
That's not related to the tea I got you for Christmas. But yeah, Jared Allen just really is. I don't think it's really a hipster take. He really has improved. He's gotten better. He was a solid overall player when the Cavs acquired him. He just knocked over Iro, folks.
I picked him up and put him, showed him to you. I got a little nice
I
Funko
know,
collection.
but he was a very solid player. Like the floor was there, like it was here for the Cavs. Like the Cavs had a solid player. This is a player they coveted, a player I was a big fan of, just because defensively, like he's a highly efficient player because he's a lethal pick and roll partner, really good cleanup master as well. He's added certain things to his game that are really exciting. Like Chris said, the dribble handoff aspect is good, but my pick is Darius Garland because we kind of expected him to take this leap. Jackson Frank talked about it. I talked about it. You've talked about it. Like so many people have just like mentioned, like, okay, year 3 is going to be the year Darius Garland makes the leap because guards and his skill set and archetype, and like just like based on his career trajectory, he was really showing at the end of the year 2, and then they were kind of knocked out of the play-in consideration. So the Cavs kind of pulled Garland back a little bit, let him rest up. It worked out in the end. They got Evan Mobley as their draft picks. I think they'll do that every time, but Garland really took the lead. He has been the key cog to just kind of make this offense work. If it was like a car or a Ferrari, I don't say give him those Nash comparisons quite yet, but like it's Nash-esque, which is how much he has an impact on the offense and just makes everything function properly. Garland has a bit of a flair for the dramatic, like with his story with Martin Rickman. He really vibes with being from the same hometown as Michael Jackson. I wonder if like Garland has a little bit of a flair to his passes, and like there's just something fun. Like he juices his offense in a way that's just is really exciting. And him going absolutely nuclear like over the last month or so is a direct correlation of him just having one of the highest usage rates in the league. I think it was like just less than James Harden at that point historically. And like yeah, he's going to regress back to the mean a little bit. I don't think he's going to necessarily be putting up 20 and 10 for the remainder of the season, but he has been awesome for the Cavs. I think him having 2 competent like offensive big men in Allen and Mobley helps a lot with his game too. But like you can really tell, like especially when he was out with COVID or the back issues, how vital he is to this offense. Like MIP is most important player for me too, but like he's really improved a lot and he's taking this leap. But I think him just kind of saying, all right, this is my team, I'm going to take us to where we need to go is really refreshing too. And the Cavs have their franchise guard. They haven't had one since Kyrie left, and it's cool to have one again.
Was there anyone that we did not mention that we should have in this conversation?
Well, I mean, I think you can make an argument for Jetty. Jetty's been really solid this year, but I think it's a lot of that helps with Ricky Rubio. Kevin Love, I just think really acclimating to the 6-man role and just kind of being such like a key cog to this Cavs team.
We'll get to that.
Well,
yeah, we'll get to that one. Yeah, we'll get to that one.
I had a lot of reservations about what we would get from Kevin Love this season. The fact that they're able to get so much and it's been so beneficial and like healthy, just culture wise and play wise, has been super unexpected and refreshing. And I think just seeing like where he was last year and seeing where he was at Team USA to now really puts into consideration like, okay, Kevin Love's really like gelled and found his groove again.
Yeah, I think most improved. I think hats come down to Garland and Allen.
Oh yeah.
I think like on the lower scale, I think if there's like a bummer that someone isn't in this category, it's probably Okoro.
Yeah, it is a bummer because Okoro's offensive game is just still lagging a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of stalled in some ways, pretty much across the board. So yeah, I think it's one of those 2 guys, and I think either of them are good answers. Okay, after the break, we're going to get into 6 man of the year and talk about the 2 guys perhaps with the best hair and facial hair on the entire team. But before we do that, I'm going to tell you about our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. As the NFL's done and football's done, but the NBA is going on. There's a ton of more basketball to come, and it's going to keep going for months and months and months. BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, news this season. Look, and it's not just basketball. They have college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, and live real-time updates of current games. Do not wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2022 season across all these different sports. That's BetOnline, and that's where the game starts. Evan, 6 man of the year. 2 candidates. Ricky Rubio, Kevin Love. Who do you want to talk about first?
RIP to Ricky Rubio. The award is named after him and his knee and legacy, but let's talk about Rubio first. I want to kind of say Kevin Love for the last because he's the most handsome, and you can really talk a lot about how positive he's been from beginning to end. But like Rubio was awesome for the Cavs when he was available. Like, didn't expect that either. I kind of thought he was tapped out after his time in Minnesota, but like maybe it's a little bit of that Olympics bump, maybe being like the best player at the Olympics prior, but like Olympic Rubio wasn't a thing. We saw him regress back to the mean a little bit just towards when he cooled off for a little while, but like he came in hot and he was just like consistently like the most entertaining player to watch on the floor for the Cavs because he just had like a lot of these like, fuck it, I'm just going to shoot this three. If it doesn't go in, it doesn't go in. But more often than not, it went in. And yes, there are nights that were bad, but I think the momentum that Garland established with the starting unit was continued every time Rubio came on the floor. And like you really saw the Cavs like pulverize teams that they probably had no chance against last year because they had just continuous point guard play. And I jokingly say this, and I'll say it again, that the Cavs aren't going to apologize for 48 minutes of elite point guard play. But it's just really cool to see how well Rubio played. It's a bummer that his knee injury happened. I'd like to see him come back just for the vibes and the culture aspect, but I just don't think he's going to be a beneficial player after tearing the same ACL twice. But yeah, I think just Rubio was a revelation just to kind of start the season. And if he was still healthy and active, one, Karis LeVert wouldn't be on this roster, but two, I think he'd be running away with the six-man award right now.
Yeah, I think theoretically could have found another avenue for the LeVert trade, but obviously, unfortunately, injury made that kind of
Yeah,
easier.
the Rubio contract was just like the cleanest avenue.
Yes. I think that the note about Rubio in his age 31 season, with a usage rate that is higher than any he had at any point in his career up to date. He had a 24% usage rate. The highest previously was 23% in 2018 with the Jazz. He, was kind of, I think his offensive impact was really about like his ability to, he made some big shots. He was really hot early in the year and was moving the ball and providing some juice in a way that I think like doesn't totally show up statistically, but I think was very clear. Like he had an assist percentage of 35%, which is in the 90th percentile for his position, which is bonkers according to dunks and threes. But I think his real impact was almost defensively. Here's this bigger guard who you could play with Garland. And like, I thought coming into the year, the combo we would see with Rubio, if it was going to work, was going to be him and Sexton, because I thought he would provide some of the playmaking, provide some of the passing, provide some of the offensive organization next to Sexton that would allow Sexton to do Sexton things as a scorer, as a slasher, as a spot up guy that could really accentuate what Colin does well. It turned out that Rubio playing with Darius Garland put two really good ball handlers on the floor, two guys that are really crafty with the ball in their hands, and it worked. And then defensively, he was this big guard who was very sturdy, provided a first line of defense against pick and roll, against actions, and was like, had one of his best defensive seasons in a long time. I mean, statistically, defensively, like he had his best defensive season since 2018 when he was in his first full year with the Jazz,
Mm-hmm.
and then he had two really good years there, and like dipped a little bit in Phoenix, dipped a little bit in Minnesota, but it's like you put him back with rim protecting centers and have him playing really hard, and like there's a path to success there in a way that is, I think, frankly, really encouraging for what he was doing. The Cavs offense, like statistically, has been kind of the same with and without him. Like it has remained about league average. It was better with him and Garland than most other units, but has remained kind of average. I think his defensive impact is probably not stated quite enough for how good he was.
Mm-hmm.
But they clearly missed him, and like LeVert was never going to replace him 1-to-1. It would be interesting to see if they could have both of them. Curious to see like how many, if his shooting could have held up in a meaningful way. I think it'd be really interesting to see like what his future in the NBA looks like, just because he's a guy that I think the Cavs like should look at bringing back in the summer. We haven't really touched on this, but like
We haven't.
like
I'm a fan of bringing him back on a vet
it
min
just
contract.
it's the cost, and then it depends on what a guy who has torn his ACL now for the second time in the same need age, post 30, as a point guard will look like. That is like a very clear, fair concern. Like this was an incredible Rubio year that ended it in an unfortunate manner, and like I hope that when I think we won't do this. I hope generally when we look back on this year and think about it, I think his impact should kind of resonate when we kind of go back and think about it, because he was pretty great.
Yeah, the curse of the number 3 jersey just remains undefeated, though, unfortunately.
Well,
But
you say that, and then
We thought people were like the curse is broken, and
Karis
then
Levert is wearing it now, buddy. So you gotta hope for the Cavs' sake that curse is in fact fake.
oh, it's real, bro. It's so real. Drummond ruined it. Thomas ruined it. Rubio, I thought was gonna fix it, and then he blew out his knee, and I was just like, 3 is undefeated.
I don't know. Did Derek Williams break it? Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, Rubio was just really fun. We haven't talked about it a lot, obviously, because we don't know what the future holds for the Cavs. We don't know what financial decisions or what team personnel decisions they're going to make. Like, it could be a dramatically different roster next year. Like, Okoro and Sexton could be gone if there's like a clear power play. Like, marketing could be gone if there's a clear power play too. Let's say like Jaylen Brown becomes available. Boston says we'll take Markin and Okoro and Colin Sexton. Like, I think that's a pretty easy trade for the Cavs to make if you don't have to include a ton of draft capital to make that happen, but I would imagine they would. It depends on what the free agency market just kind of shakes out for the Cavs. Like, they are kind of limited in terms of space right now just because of the final year of the Love contract. They could always trade Kevin Love too. Like, they could do a lot of different things, but like Rubio, I'm a big fan of bringing back. I think play-wise, he wouldn't be able to return to the court probably it's about this time next year because ACL recoveries are tricky. You want to bring him along slowly. So I don't really think you're bringing him back as the player. You're bringing him back as like a locker room presence. He's a player who really resonated with Darius Garland a lot and somebody who's like Garland picked the brain of Rubio a lot just in terms of just like playmaking, like just seeing the court differently, just things like that, which is super helpful and encouraging for this Cavs team. So you're like kind of bringing him back as like the locker room vibes guy. I don't know if it's a tough decision or question, but like, do you really want to bring Rondo back instead? Like, that's the decision you have to make. Does Rondo want to come back, or does he want to play for more of a contending squad at that point, like a championship squad at that point? Because Rondo is older and has more mileage compared to Rubio. I would be a fan of it personally. Like, I enjoyed the Ricky Rubio experience. Like, I don't buy jerseys anymore. Like, my girlfriend said, like, are you gonna buy an all-star jersey? I'm like, no, I might buy some all-star paraphernalia, just like a sweatshirt or something, just because it's here. But like, I don't do jerseys anymore. But like the Rubio jersey, I consider just having as like a one-off novelty item, just because of how much fun I had watching him play. Like, I enjoyed his entire career arc. Like, enjoyed him in Minnesota, Phoenix, Utah, you name it. But like his time in Cleveland was some of the most fun I had watching the Cavs because like the offense just like hummed at times, and I'm just like, holy shit, this Cavs team is elite on both ends of the floor right now.
Did he exceed your expectations from what they were
Yes,
getting from? Okay, me too.
yeah,
Me too.
because when he in Minnesota last year, really positive presence in the locker room, but like he wasn't like a super impactful player. Utah, they were pretty comfortable with getting rid of him when Mike Conley became available. Ditto for Phoenix with Chris Paul. He's been solid, but like looked like he was trending downwards when he was leaving Minnesota and coming to Cleveland. I'm just like, okay, you get a competent backup point guard. It's like that's the right thing to do behind Darius, but like, holy cow, he turned back the clock a little bit with how he was playing.
Notable for the year, didn't thought he would have shot better than this 36.3%, which is lower than I would have thought, but like still 33.9% on three, which is one of his better 3-point shooting seasons for his career on career high volume. Was kind of magical in exceeding himself in a way that was really interesting to kind of watch. So salute to Rick Rubio. We'll talk about him and kind of decide finally after the break when we did pick between him and who we're going to talk about next, Kevin Love. But Evan, tell everyone first about our friends at Rock Auto.
Absolutely. You can save money and time while using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30%, 50%, or even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years, and their prices are reliably low for every customer. They have everything you need from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find a solution for your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On, and they're how did you hear about us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Check them out today at rockauto.com.
All right, last segment, Evan. Let's talk about Kevin Love. So how do you feel vis-a-vis Kevin Love vis-a-vis Ricky Rubio in this conversation?
Well, like I said, if Rubio was still playing at this point, I don't think we'd be having this conversation. But like Kevin Love, has been really freaking good for the Cavs this year. Like I said, expectations were rock bottom with Kevin Love. I think my expectations were just rock bottom with this Cavs team in general, just because of how bad they were last year. And the cynic in me expects the worst. But like seeing him with Team USA, the Colangelo comments really just felt like he was twisting the knife a lot there, but like it really just felt like the nail in the coffin where the Cavs was like, okay, they have an albatross contract and a player with a bad calf and a bad Achilles tendon. But he's been really good. He's been a positive locker room guy, which I think is really helpful too. Like I said earlier in the season, it's hard to believe that Kevin Love is now a positive veteran presence other than Ricky Rubio on this team. He's been really good. I think the fact that he's just kind of let the guys just shit on him for being the old man in the locker room, and he's kind of just embraced being the old head who like giving advice to the future of the Cavs, like is really helpful. I think it's encouraging that he was the one who started the conversation with JV Bickerstaff to say, like, listen, I need to come off the bench and you need to start this rookie. And like he just knew Evan Mobley was kind of the real deal from right away. Mm-hmm. And he's really just kind of grown and meshed with I think having Bickerstaff as the coach helps a lot too, because it's a coach Kevin has like a long-term history with and somebody he respects, obviously. So that helps a lot too. But I do think winning is like the common factor here that's kind of made this work. Like if the Cavs weren't winning, I think we'd have a grumpier Kevin Love coming off the bench. But yes, it's been fun. Like it's been really fun to watch him just kind of revitalize his public image. Like a lot of fans are like anti-Kevin Love. You and I are kind of like hesitant on him, just talking about him as a player. He was a hot topic, like a hot button issue, I should say. And he's been fun. Like I said, if Rubio wasn't hurt, he'd be running away with his injury or award, I should say. But like now that Love is kind of just like that consistent bench piece for the Cavs, like shooting wise, not great at times, but he's been hot lately for the Cavs and just been fun. Like I think, yeah, you can give him serious consideration. Like he should be considered for the award in general too.
So Kevin Love, right now for the year, 50 games played. His he will, barring unforeseen injury, will be the most he's played since 2015-16, which is notable. He plays more than 10 games the rest of the way. It's the most he's played since his last All-Star season. 42.6% from the field, his best number he shot 45% a couple years ago, but it's a good number on 10.7 attempts per game. 39.3% from three. That'll be his best mark since the 2017-18 season, aka the for my money the best season of the second LeBron era. He is averaging for the year 14.3 points, 7.3 rebounds. He's averaging 0.2 blocks, not really doing like defensively. He's at least like trying. It's not exactly like the best defense, but he's at least like trying and competing in that
drawing
end.
A ton of charges to counterbalance the blocks.
Yeah, I would read along. I generally have so much. I'm so interested in his ability to take charges and willingness to.
When he took that charge from Giannis the other day, I was just like, "Oh my god!"
My ribs hurt thinking about it.
My ribs hurt, and my lower back just like tighten up. I was just like, "Oh, I feel it from here."
I mean, his usage rate is at 25%, is pretty much in line with kind of what he was in the LeBron era. He's 4 years older. He is having his expected plus minus this year is the best he's had since he's come to Cleveland, according to dunks and threes. And like defensively, like he's rating out much better than he has at any point in his Cavs tenure. Offensively, he's having like kind of a season that is more in line with 2016 than it was, any of the last 2 years when like maybe his numbers were a little better, but wasn't providing quite as much. Some of it is he's playing fewer minutes. 22.9 minutes per game is the lowest he will have played in his career. That is, I think, a notable thing of part of this Kevin Love renaissance. And like I would say, like from the numbers perspective of this, right? Like if you want to compare it to Rubio, if you want to like look at it from just like a math perspective, Rubio has an expected plus minus of +1, expected wins created of 2.7. Kevin Love, for instance, is at 3.6 expected plus minus and expected wins 5.1. So like analytically, like the numbers prefer Kevin Love. So I think this comes down to vibe versus math. Is that Love, I think, has had a better statistical impact. I think Rubio's vibe was probably a little bit more
Love's
like
vibe's been good too.
Yeah, but the Kevin Love, like the Ricky Rubio like bump that they got just felt very real, and the Kevin Love thing has been more of like a slow grind. I think I'm giving it to Kevin Love if I'm being honest, though.
I think I am too. I've kind of been making that argument for a while, even when Rubio was playing for the Cavs. Like you said, it's a bit of a vibe thing. Like you could just see the offense popped. That's also when Sexton was still on the floor too. But like Osman and Love both were like just humming with Rubio. Like those three were like a pretty good unit for the Cavs just coming off the bench. And they're still trying to find it again. I think Rondo just hasn't been the answer. And I just still will stress that the Cavs should say goodbye to Kevin Pangos and maybe go find, like, if Goran Dragic ends up in Cleveland, which I doubt he does, he probably ends up in like Chicago or like the Warriors or something. The Cavs need to go find like another complimentary guard that can kind of provide a little bit of juice like Rubio does. But like Love statistically has been great. Vibe wise has been great as well. I think him just like being a leader in the locker room is super refreshing. Like he's kind of embraced just being the key veteran. I wouldn't say it's Chris Paul-esque, but like it feels like Chris Paul with Oklahoma City at times, or like Paul's like embraced like what could have been a shitty situation and just elevated the rest of his young players and just made them better. This is kind of what I think the Cavs wanted from Kevin Love for the longest time, especially when he was starting, but it's a few years too late, but that's okay. People grow and they change and they just kind of have to reevaluate the situation. But yeah, I think Love gets the award just in terms of statistics and just vibes as well. Like you can make that, but like, yeah, Rubio had a bump and he was in consideration just in terms of like betting lines for a while. Obviously fell off when the injury came along. I still don't think Love is in betting consideration for six man yet.
So that's going to be my next one. So from our friends at BetOnline, Tyler Hero
Yeah.
is the favorite at -2,000 right now.
I believe that.
Kelly Oubre and Kevin Love are tied for second at +1,600.
Oh,
That has moved a little bit. That has moved. Kevin Love was a little further away last time I looked at this, and then Montrezl Harrell is +5,000. So like betting wise, it is
I'd
those
put some
three
money on
candidates.
Love.
It is those three candidates: Hero, Oubre, and Love. It would be interesting to see if Kevin ends up playing like 60+ games. I think if he looks fresher coming out of the All-Star break, which I think like he probably will, because I think he's played like 30-some minutes a lot the last couple weeks, and I think that has had an impact on where he's at. When JB's been asked about this, I think repeatedly, like I've asked him about this. I think you have like a bunch of, Fedor, Russo, everyone has. I think part of it is just like Kevin Love they need to get him available. And I think there's been a plan here to keep him to be available as much as possible. I think it has been a concerted effort, and I think that has to sustain going forward. And I think hopefully gonna take that same approach next year as well. When he'll be another year older and all of that. And he's also just been really important. But I think there's like a very clear case, especially because like Hero starts a fair amount for Miami. Kevin Love has started 2 games. I'm going to look up how many games Tyler Hero has started, but I think it's a decent chunk more compared to.
You're disqualified from the award if there's a certain threshold too, right?
Yeah, I believe
like
so. So
35.
Hero has, so Hero has only started 10 games.
Yeah.
So like, that's like, okay.
I don't think he's going to start.
Once again, I reacted this based on people's angry tweets about stuff, but I think either one is like, I think probably Fair Hero kind of has like the betting buzz you would for whatever reason hear. Love's going to have a really good case, and I'll be curious to see like if the Cavs
Miami's
finish
also the top team in the East. That helps.
Yeah, and like they don't have like an MVP candidate or like there's like some narrative stuff in there that you could kind of like read into if you want to look at it. Like Jimmy's not going to be an MVP candidate, all that stuff. But there's got to be a really good case for Kevin Love, and I think for the Cavs specifically, I'm going Kevin Love, and like Rubio deserves like his own like award for something. Like I'm pro, just give out trophies, just like love a ribbon, love a little smack, love a little.
Chris was a big fan of Field Day as a kid, where everyone got a participation trophy at the end.
I just want people to feel accepted and loved and respected for their craft.
Oh, that's admirable. I like that. I'm just teasing though.
Yeah.
Nothing new.
It's true. But I think it's Kevin Love. I think the impact is there. And I think this has been like, again, like Rubio, I'm surprised at how good Kevin Love has been.
Yeah. Again, the expectations were rock bottom with Kevin Love, especially after like watching him for a bit with Team USA. You're like, oh shit, it's gotten worse since when like this, because like at the end of the season with the Cavs, the expectations are pretty low just in terms of injury, in terms of mood, in terms of that. Like we were having legitimate conversations. Like, when's he going to get bought out? Will the Cavs stretch his contract? And instead he's done a complete 180 and has been a positive, impactful piece. We'll see if this continues into next season, obviously, but we'll worry about that down the line, maybe in the off season, because he could regress as well. But like, this has been a really nice turnaround season for both Kevin Love and Ricky Rubio. But I agree, the award in the end goes to Kevin Love.
Yes. Okay. That's going to be it for today. We gave most improved player to, we gave a lot of coast today. So let's just say Darius Garland, Jared Allen. Darius Garland, by the way, from a betting perspective, is second behind John Morant and most improved player. Jared Allen's on that list as well, but plus 5,000. And then coach of the year, which we'll have to find a way to talk about JB in some capacity, because we can't do like a Cavs coach of the year, because that's a lot of mess there. But like, he's second right now in the odds according to BetOnline and coach of the year.
Jenkins first.
Let me look. I scroll by. Monty Williams.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. The Suns are
for
incredible
Monty.
this year.
Yeah, minus 200 for Monty, plus 225 for JB, plus 700 for Jenkins, plus 750 for Billy Donovan, and Spo is plus 1,000.
Yeah, those all make absolute sense. But the Monty, I should have thought of Monty. The Suns are so good this year. They are my pick to win the championship this year.
Yeah, team's really freaking good. So we gave
it reminds me of the San Antonio revenge tour after they lost to the Heat in the finals, and then went back and just smacked the Heat, and then made LeBron leave.
Yes. We gave out some awards. Most improved, sixth man of the year. Shouts to Kevin Love. And we don't have the budget for it. We could send out some fake awards if we had the budget, but it's in our hearts. And frankly, that matters more than.
I'll just text him a picture of my cat and be like, "Congratulations, you won."
Who the fuck is this?
Just super cryptic.
Yeah, you get him like an NFT ape and just really lean into the problematic bits.
I took a screenshot of an NFT ape and just like crop it like the dumbass Twitter things. I wish there was a feature to mute people who talk, because whenever I tweet about NFTs as like a joke, I get like a million people, not a million, but a couple, like 10, 15 people DMing me like, "Oh, you want to invest in NFTs?" I'm like, "No, I don't want to buy your stupid trading cards."
To quote my favorite basketball analyst as we exit the pod, Dave DeFore, NFT, more like no fucking thanks. That's going to be Locked On Cavs. I'm Chris Manning. That's Evan Damrell. Want a great second listen today? Go check out one of the very, very many great Locked On NBA podcasts we have. I just listened to Locked On Hawks. Brad Rollins, a mensch. Can't wait to see him soon. And Evan punches Mike. He hasn't done that in a while. Everyone be well. See you soon.